With our discussion of Earth and space science, we are going to start in the center with our sun and move out from there. So we talked the last couple of days about the electromagnetic spectrum, light, and some of the weird properties of light, that dual nature of light, the photon versus wave particle models, and how light behaves. So that'll come into play when we talk about the sun, not only of how we understand the sun, but how we learned about the sun to know what we do know about it. So we're going to start with just a general introduction. There's so much you could learn about the sun if you want to dig deeper, but I'm going to do just a very basic skim over what it is and how it works and let you kind of dive in and discover more on your own. So here's what we know. We know that the sun formed about 4.6 billion years ago, and I'll tell you in just a second how we got that number. It's about 100 times more massive than Earth, it's about 93 million miles, miles from the Earth, and that unit, that 93 million miles, we can kind of condense into one unit called an astronomical unit. We use it as a standard unit of measure because when you're out into the solar system and space and in between different solar systems, miles is just way too many zeros. So they take that 93 million miles, one thing that we know, and use it as one AU. So you might see that pop up a couple of times. With that distance, once light is emitted from the sun, even traveling at the speed of light, it still takes a little over 8 minutes for light to reach us from where it was emitted by the sun. So the sun itself is made of hot plasma and electromagnetic fields. Lots and lots of energy blowing around in there. Plasma, if you'll remember, there's 4 states of matter. There's solid. If you add energy to a solid, then it melts into a liquid. If you add energy to a liquid, then it vaporizes into a gas. And plasma is above gas. If you add energy to a gas, then the atoms start moving around so fast that they actually rip each other apart. And you've got individual ions that are floating around separate of each other. So in the sun, there's so much energy, there's so many of those ions floating around that they will eventually run into each other, smash into each other, and undergo a process called thermonuclear fusion, where those atoms will actually smash together and fuse. So when that happens, your results are another proton that's going to go and smash into the next one, and then helium. We start with hydrogen, and then it turns into helium through time. I actually like this diagram a little bit better. We start with individual protons, which atomic number 1, that would be hydrogen. They smash and react. You get positrons and neutrinos that are produced, and then you get a proton-neutron nucleus, which is a proper hydrogen atom. Or ion, actually, because there's no electron. Proper hydrogen ion. Then they react with another proton that's out there floating around, and you produce helium. So over time, our big nuclear reactor is taking a bunch of hydrogen, individual atoms, and fusing them together into helium. So looking at the ratio of how many hydrogen versus helium, that kind of gives us an idea of how long this reaction's been happening. Now, energy is released. You can see, back in this, that we release gamma rays. We release energy when these reactions happen. That energy will travel to the Earth and everywhere else around it goes, of course, 360 degrees, but travels outwards in the form of electromagnetic radiation. Everything from radio waves all the way up to gamma radiation, depending on the amount of energy that it had. Now, looking at the energy that's coming to us, looking at the infrared and the visible and whatnot, we can classify our sun as what's called a yellow dwarf. So what does that yellow dwarf mean? Well, this is what's called the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. It is a way of ranking stars based on 3 factors: the luminosity, which is brightness, how bright it is; absolute magnitude, or bigness, how big is it; and then down there at the bottom, the temperature, how hot is it. Our sun is what's called a G-class star. We're right in here. There's G-class right there. We're in this G area. We are about 1/3 of the way down in brightness, 1/3 of the way down in temperature, and 1/3 of the way down in size. So we're not small, but not very big and impressive either. These stars that fall along this main sequence, those tend to be kind of your normal stars that you get. Every now and then you have some that swell up in size. The blue giants, red giants, you have some that are very, very small, but very, very hot and very bright. Those are those white dwarfs. But most of your stars are going to fall along that main sequence. As a star ages, like we talked, that hydrogen is going to turn into helium. As a star ages, it just moves slightly down this main sequence until the next stage of its life cycle. So our sun will continue to get a little bit smaller, a little bit dimmer, and a little bit colder as it ages, as that hydrogen turns into helium. So how does that energy get to us or get produced from fusion? Well, remember in the video about the wave-particle duality, we talked a little bit about orbitals and electrons and how they jump and release energy. When that energy excites the ions in the sun, they build up a lot of energy and give off that energy. Whenever they do finally calm down and relax, they give off that energy in the form of photons. So if we can't go to the sun, we can't take a little beaker and scoop up some sun plasma and bring it back and study it in the lab, how do we know what we know? Well, it's all through looking at the light that makes its way from the sun to us, looking at those photons, looking at that spectrum. We do know that the power that's emitted by an object, or the amount of energy that's emitted from an object, increases with temperature. The hotter something is, the more energy it will release. We know that electromagnetic radiation consists of little bundles of energy called photons, and we talked in previous videos about how and why we know that. We know that the energy of a photon depends on the frequency that is emitted. Those are interchangeable, energy and frequency. So if we look at which wavelengths are being sent to us, then we get an emission spectrum. Now, the sun should be sending us pretty much everything, but we noticed a little bit of problem. So each atom, each type of material has its own signature, its own spectra, so to speak. You may have done this in chemistry. In chemistry, you may have talked about emission spectra. This is a tube containing hydrogen. They put in electric current. It's too late. Put an electric current through that plasma and excited it so that it started emitting light. They put the light through a slit and ran it through a prism. And that prism, remember, just like prism takes sunlight and splits it, it took that light from the hydrogen and split it into the different wavelengths that are contained. This has to do with which electrons are jumping energy levels and giving off which frequencies of light. So hydrogen's signature should look something like this. Now the sun should be sending us everything, but when Joseph Fraunhofer looked at the emission spectrum from sunlight, there were some things missing. As the sun's radiation passes through that outer layer of the sun's atmosphere, which the sun has different layers, we'll look at that in a second, the outer layer has some gases that absorb energy coming from the center of the sun and take those wavelengths out. So looking at which dark lines, which lines were missing, because we would expect to have the whole spectrum, but there were some missing ones. Looking at the ones missing, we compare that with the ones that we know, the emission spectra. Looking at the absorption spectra, matching it with the emission spectra, we can tell what the sun is made of and how much of it there is. We know that mostly hydrogen with some helium. Looking at the rate of reaction, looking at how much hydrogen versus how much helium, then we can get an idea of how long the sun has been doing thermonuclear fusion and how much longer it can do thermonuclear fusion before it comes to the end of its lifetime. And we're about halfway through excuse me, the sun's lifetime. So we've got another 5-ish billion years to go. So don't worry about any crazy things happening. So this is kind of what it looks like. The sun's hot interior should be sending us the entire spectrum, the entire electromagnetic radiation spectrum. But this cooler atmosphere out here has atoms whose electrons get excited by that energy that's coming from the interior, and they jump orbital levels. When they jump orbital levels, they're taking that energy out so it doesn't make it to us. So those dark lines you see that are missing, match up with the emission spectra of known elements like hydrogen or helium. So we see the absorption lines. That gives us the signature of what's over here in this atmosphere. When it gets to the Earth, kind of the same thing, but opposite. You've got incoming photons coming into the Earth. It hits our magnetic field and becomes energized and zips around the magnetic field to the poles. So the North Pole and the South Pole have that incoming solar radiation. The atmosphere absorbs that incoming energy, and the electrons get excited in the atoms and they jump. And then eventually, those electrons will calm back down and release. As they jump down in orbital, will release that energy in the form of light. So this is the northern lights. There's also southern lights. And those northern lights are the result of emission spectra. They're emitting light after absorbing it from incoming solar radiation. So here's the sun's energy coming in. Those electrons will hit the air molecules. They'll be pulled around through that magnetic field around the Earth. The molecules are excited. The electrons jump. And then once they calm down, it gives off the light that you see. You can actually forecast auroras, both the north and the south, depending on the solar energy that's occurring as well as atmospheric conditions. Where's the best place to see it and what time? So finally I want to show you real quick the layers of the sun. Just like the layers of the Earth, the sun exists in layers too. When you see a kid draw the sun and they've got the circle and then they draw the little sticks out around it, that's the corona. So you can tell them, nice corona, next time you see a kid draw a sun. But that's that outer kind of atmosphere-ish layer of the sun. And you can see a lot of the chromosphere, those big blobs, if you think of it almost like lava, even though it's a plasma, not a molten liquid. But anyway, it kind of bubbles in the same sense. And a lot of those magnetic fields, a lot of that plasma will extend into the corona from that chromosphere. And then inside you have different zones of radiation, of moving around, convection, and finally a more dense core in the center. So again, we went really quick into the sun, its structure, and how we know what we know. There's way more to learn about the sun. If this interests you, dig deep. It gets a little funky. It's fun. But this is just kind of an intro to get us started. And then from here, we'll move out into the rest of the solar system, including a place that you might be a little familiar with. So we'll see you next time.